All of you have been practicing the frequencies of your being over a long enough period of time that you have habits of thoughts. That's what a belief is. It's just a pattern of thinking, a pattern of responding, a knee-jerk response. It's the way the world looks through your eyes. It's the way you have learned it from those who have been important to you early on. It's a very conditional love that most people live. Most people look out and they see these conditions and they like them, and then they see those conditions and they don't like them, and then they say, we've got to control the conditions so that there are more that we say yes to and fewer that we say no to. And we say, the problem with that way of going about it is that this is a world that is based on attraction. It's an inclusion-based universe, which means if I see something I want and I say yes to it, I include it in my vibration. If I see something I don't want and I shout no at it, I include it in my vibration. And by including those things I do not want in my vibration, I hold myself in resistance not only to what I want, but to who I have become. And that's why I'm so angry at that person. I feel terrible because I am using that person and what they've done as my excuse to not allow myself to be up to speed with who I really am. So a really good thing to write down, a good thing to remember often. If you are ever in a situation where you are feeling negative emotion and you are associating it with someone who cheated you, someone who deceived you, someone who hurt you in some way, someone who abandoned you, someone who you have strong negative emotion about when you think about that person, here's what you write in your book. Write their name at the top of the page and circle it several times as you feel vengeance welling up within you. And then write, what is it that I'm thinking about you that is keeping me from who I really am? Can you hear the power of that? What is it that I am thinking about you that is depriving me of my well-being? That's taking your power back. When you say, look what you've done to me, stop it. And they say, I don't think I want to stop it. And you say, but you must, you're hurting my feelings. And they say, your feelings are not important to me. And you say, well, I need to see if I can find a way of making my feelings important to you. I'll cry louder. I'll sob longer. I'll go into an utter state of depression. I'll kill myself. I know what I'll do. I'll get vengeance. I'll get a lawyer. I'll tell everyone what you've done. I'll get people to agree with me. I'll get an army. We'll get bombs. What you finally come round to understanding is that no matter who they are, your power of persuasion is really not your best effort. Your power of alignment is. Because it is so simple to come into alignment with who you are, and utterly impossible to make someone else do what you think you need them to do. And anyway, even if you can be persuasive enough or influential enough that you can get someone to do what you think you need them to do, now you're sort of in a trap, because now you either have to live a very narrow life because there's just that one compliant friend, or you have to work all day, every day in convincing others to do it your way. And we promise you, you did not come forth into this physical environment with all of the variety, with an attitude that you would take all of the ideas that exist and whittle them down to a handful of good ideas. In fact, the opposite was your intention. You said, I will come forth into this physical leading-edge time-space reality. And as I come forth into this leading-edge time-space reality, I will explore the contrast, and from it will be born constant, steady stream of new ideas. And as I turn my undivided attention to the new idea, all of the laws of the universe and all of the energy of the universe the energy that creates worlds will flow through me and to the creation. Child asked his mother on a segment of refreshment, if you get a chance to talk to Abraham, please ask a question for me. And she was the next person called to the chair because we wanted to hear her child's question. Ask Abraham why grown-ups are so grumpy. And our answer is, the longer you live, the more you find to fuss and worry about. And you've forgotten that every time you fuss and worry, you give birth to a rocket that source energy helps you with. And that if you would fuss and worry just long enough to know what you want and then turn your undivided attention as quickly as you can toward what you want, not only will you begin to be the rider on this river, this glorious wave that is continually flowing out there on the leading edge of thought, not only will you feel the vitality and eagerness of life flowing through you, but every single thing you've ever asked for must come to you. It is law. But when you get cross current of that stream, it's not fun. As things were happening politically and around the world, many people began to find satisfaction in the television programs that pushed against the current administration. And for many, it was a downstream thought. In other words, it was fun to make fun. It was like, finally, someone is speaking some of what I'm feeling. But for most people, they could not stay downstream while they were watching those shows because it was only downstream from where they were, but there's always something downstream from where you are. You get the sense of what we were talking about? One day, we heard someone chastising someone else about the direction of their stream. Your friends do that to you? That's an upstream thought, you know. So you want to say to them, not for me it wasn't, it was downstream for me. Might be upstream for you, but you aren't in my boat. I'm the only one in my boat. The key to long-term happiness, the key to receiving everything that you're wanting, the key to being the fulfillment of that which you intended as you came forth, the key to being that leading edge being that you were born to be, the key to living life in the way that you said you would when you came forth, the key to keeping up to who you really are, the key to being the physical embodiment of the source energy who is within you, the key to that is a downstream thought. Not the best thought you've ever thought. Just the best feeling thought you can find from where you are. No matter where you are on the emotional scale, no matter where you are, as you put your boat into the river, as you reach for the best feeling thought you can find, that's got to help, yes? And if you keep doing that, before you know, you're really going with the flow. You are hearing the call of Source. So what does the call of Source sound like? Harps and angels, surely? What's the call of Source sounds like? Well, it depends on where you are. If you are in love and appreciation, the call of Source will feel like ripples up your spine. It will feel like goosebumps all over your body. It will feel like elation. It will feel like laughter. It will feel like joyous exaltation. It will feel orgasmic. But if you are over here in despair or in anger or revenge, the call of Source might very well feel like a little less anger or like frustration. You have to listen for it from where you are. And most important, and here's what we've been leading up to with all of this rampaging, you have to utilize your own guidance system and take everybody else and their guidance system and everybody else and their set of rules and lists of things that you should and should not do out of the equation. You have this boat that you're upstream, downstream, mostly downstream, mostly downstream, mostly downstream. We know that because we've seen you croak. Mostly downstream, mostly downstream, mostly downstream, mostly downstream, mostly downstream. The stream is going downstream. The question is, are you going downstream willingly or are you going with a fight? That really is the question. Because your life will be good. You are worthy beings. You were born to live well. Life is supposed to be good for you. That's just the way that it is. Now, you can fuss and fight that if you want to. But that is the way that it is. And so, what do you want to talk about?
Thanks for being so fun. Sometimes I have emotions that masquerade as glorious, fun, good emotions. And then later on I realize, perhaps not. So an example would be if I've spent some time with somebody who's perhaps a little irritating, and I'm able to start at the beginning with being, clear and joyous, regardless of whatever is going on there, and then time meanders on, and something's perhaps gotten under my skin, and suddenly I'm starting to feel righteous or arrogant. And those feelings that in the moment sometimes can have their own sense of positiveness.
Well, you're right. That's what we meant earlier when we said something might feel downstream because it is more downstream than where you were. Mm-hmm. But once you settle into it, now there's something much more downstream for you. In other words, you have to remember that your inner being, who you really are, is in a place of pure positive energy. Your inner being adores everyone. Your inner being adores you, but your inner being adores the others too. So when you find something in someone that you're using as your reason to push against them, then you are using them and their flaw as your excuse to separate yourself. That's too strong a word, but to cause resistance between you and who you really are. So sometimes we ask the question, which feels better, blame or guilt? And we realize that they are rotten choices. But so imagine that you feel powerless. You feel utterly powerless about something. Now conjure the feeling of blame. Is it upstream or downstream?
Upstream.
Because in the blame there is a sense of control. So you feel this blameful thought. Now feel guilty. Is it upstream or downstream? Guilt is upstream from blame. Isn't there less power in guilt? Mm-hmm. Everyone has their own stream, but sometimes what happens is you reach for the best feeling thought that you can find, and it serves you for a while, but then you have to keep reaching. The reason that we are really hammering this point about continue to reach for the best feeling thought is that you cannot stay in the revenge mode very long and it still be a downstream thought, because your source is still calling you downstream. And so in time, you have to let go of that revenge and find something more like anger. And in time, you have to let go of that anger and find something less angry. And in time, you let go of that anger and you're in frustration or overwhelmment, which is about where you started here today on this subject. And then from overwhelmment, you can get into hope, and you can get into believing and knowing and all of those good feeling emotions relatively easily, because the frequencies are not so far apart. So just say to yourself, I'm reaching for the best feeling thought that I can find, and don't try to evaluate it from the worldview. In other words, most of the world would say to any of you, it's wrong for you to be angry. They'll take you to anger management seminars if you'll allow it. And almost no one can get inside you and feel that that anger was a relief. Nobody can know which way your guidance is calling you. And if you are reaching for things outside of you, then you're getting called off in all kinds of other directions, because there are all kinds of people with all kinds of motives and all kinds of reasons that they want you to behave in the way that they want you to behave. Everyone is selfishly oriented, you see. But you must be so selfish that you want to feel good. And when you are selfish enough to reach for the thoughts that really tune you in, only then do you have anything to give to anyone else anyway, you see. As you realize that the way you feel is your indication of your point of attraction, and you care about how you feel, not because of how it affects manifestation, but because you care how you feel. It's funny, people will say, all right, so I'll learn this stuff and then I'll get what I want, right? And we say, yes. When you learn to direct your thoughts deliberately, and you do it because you care about how you feel, everything that you want will flow easily into your experience. But then we always say, but don't do it because you want to get those things. Because when you do it to get the thing, then you can't help but notice that the thing that you're trying to get, you haven't yet got. So you point upstream. You get that? Because 99.99% of every creation is completed vibrationally before you see the evidence of it. So when you start caring about how you feel, and how you feel becomes the evidence that you're reaching for, now you can find relief in 10 seconds every time. You can get the evidence of your turning in the stream immediately. Talk about instant gratification. And if you get the evidence of feeling better immediately, then you win, because You wanted the thing because you wanted to feel better anyway. And now you're queued up so that the universe can deliver to you the circumstances and events, and you are alert so you won't be missing them. In other words, everything gets better for you. And now and only then are you living the dynamic life that you came to live. Very good.